for those of you who don't know, he was one of Jesus' close buds. He was one of the apostles, disciples who walked with Jesus. And the night that Jesus was arrested, he showed his extravagant, uncontrolled exuberance. He pulled his knife, kind of Crocodile Dundee. You call that a knife? This is a knife. He pulled the knife and he cut the servant of the high priest's ear off. I'm going to do whatever to protect my Lord. You're not going to take my Lord in the insensitivity of a life of disobedience. And Jesus put the ear back and he said, Peter, it's not that time. And I'm sure the other disciples looked at him pretty impressed, saying, dude, you stood up then, man. You know, you gave it to that high priest's servant. But then Jesus had said to him, you will deny me. So from the man who carried such rage and anger and aggression, the next time we hear him and we see him in this great redemption narrative, please listen carefully. A little bitty servant girl comes to him. And she said, aren't you a Galilean? Aren't you with that guy who's been detained? And Peter at first is marginally agitated, thinking he can just disappear into the crowd. And he just fobs her off and says, absolutely not, as he disappears. But a second one asks him again. And this time he's more agitated, as we tend to get. And some of the language of the text is he cussed, he F-bombed her. He said, what are you talking about? The future rests on the shoulders of a man who F-bombed his way in front of a little servant girl. And he hears it again. And this time his mild agitation has now led to resentment and anger. And he screams with aggression, I do not know him. What don't you get? It wasn't a nice sanitized moment. It wasn't a hallmark moment. It was a moment of rage, of cursing. In the Jewish culture, 3 is a definitive number, which means it's completion, it's over now. And so he has, by his own culture and by the announcement of Jesus, he has definitively, completely, and utterly denied ever knowing, ever walking, ever partnering with Christ. He could not have been more definitive. And then what does he do? He goes home. Have you ever found the Christian faith too hard? Have you ever thought to yourself, this is just not worth it? I can't do this. I'm done. I'm going back to the place which is familiar and safe and known and controlled. I'm going fishing, he said. Boys, if you want to come with, you're welcome to, but I'm done. I'm done with this stuff. I thought he was my redeemer. He wasn't. I tried to protect him and he rebuked me. What he couldn't say is, I denied him 3 times. And dear friends, there is a moment for every one of us where we desire to go back to the familiar, the safe, the controlled, the known. But Jesus meets him there. Isn't the story beautiful? The story is beautiful because Peter goes fishing, but in the irony and humor of God, catches nothing. Catches nothing. It's Jesus who has to stand on the beach. Hey! Hey! On the right! Throw your net out on the right! And they threw their nets on the right. 153 fish. Why did they count them? I don't know. They're so jolly slippery and slimy, you know. Did I count those 4? You know, what about those 7? 153 fish that they dragged the net. It said Peter was so excited, the one who cut off the disciples' ear, the one who cussed out the servant girl is so excited, he lifts up his robe and he jumps off the boat. And as he does it, he thinks, what on earth am I doing? The guy I denied is standing over there. And he goes not towards Jesus, but goes off to the side. And after the barbecue, Jesus sidles up to him. He says, Peter, do you agape me? Do you love me with the kind of sacrificial love that I will lay my life down for you kind of love? Will you love me with that? And Peter looks, I don't even know if he looked at him, and his answer is interesting. He says, I will phileo love you. So I want to put myself first. So I love you in kind of a friendship kind of way. And so Jesus says to him, go and feed my sheep. That little affirmation was enough to commission him. You go feed my sheep, Peter, or my lambs. He says it a second time because Peter denied him 3 times. He asks him a second time, undoing the definitive closure of denial. Do you agape me? Do you love me with that kind of sacrificial love where you put me first? Oh Lord, you know I philios love you. I love you, but I love myself first. Or go and feed my sheep. This faltering, failing, fickle kind of love was enough for Jesus to work with. I'm quoting Simon Ponsonby. See, you don't have to be perfect and guarantee that you will never let him down again. All that you have to do is say, I love you with this honest kind of love. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the denier in front of 3 little girls is the one who stands up in Acts chapter 1 before 120 people. No one asked him to. No one commissioned him to. But the one who was intimidated by the few now stood up in front of the many and said, it's time that we appoint fresh leaders. And then if that was not enough, the Holy Spirit, the wind of the Spirit came, the Ruach, the breath of God came upon him. And the fire of God as a fire settled on his head. And Peter got up in front of 3,000 curious skeptics. And he preached the first message, a message that's been exegeted and pulled apart by more scholars than any other. Who was he? A few weeks ago, he said, I don't know you. The man who was filled with the Holy Spirit was dramatically transformed into one who stood up in front of 3,000 people and proclaimed Jesus is the Christ. Sam Storm, great theologian, thinker, pastor, said, the Holy Spirit fills and empowers us. The Holy Spirit empowers God's people to boldly proclaim the truth of the gospel. When Peter was asked by what power the lame man was healed, we read that Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said to them,